Have you ever gotten a job offer and you felt like you shot yourself at the leg by not negotiating a better salary? Are you in the process of negotiating a salary right now? You want to know what's the best way to negotiate a salary as a data scientist or a data analyst? Welcome. This is the right video for you. First of all, welcome to my cyberspace. In case you're new here, this is Jjay Insight. In fact, I have a new merch. You can check it out. Hopefully, you'll be able to see it. Yeah, my microphone is taking that away. But yeah, let's get right into it. Yeah, first of all, congratulations on your new offer. And in case you just want to learn how to negotiate the data analyst or like data scientist salary in your field, and you're like, oh, did I shoot myself in the leg? What is the right approach? And this principle that I'm going to be sharing with you, these are principles that I've applied myself. These principles that people that I know have applied even from reading books. One book that I would really recommend is Never Split the Difference. I can't remember the author. It's right, a former FBI negotiator. It's a very good book, but just generally is when you are negotiating a salary, you want to know who are you really negotiating with. So we have the recruiter, we have the hiring manager, there's a director. There are different power at play when it comes to salary negotiation. So first few thing is that when you are having the first conversation with the recruiter and they're like, oh, what's your salary expectation? Like most of the things you say at that point sometimes would count, sometimes would not necessarily count. So at that juncture of like the initial conversation, that's not when you want to go deep into salary negotiation. So the recruiter tells you like, oh, the for this role our budget is like between 60 to 80k or 100 to 150k or thereabouts. Like, does that work for you? What are your expectations? Normally at that point you don't really want to go into much of a negotiation. Or I can't take this, because if you go into that much of a negotiation when you've not given the recruiter or the employer, your potential hiring manager, to have more information about you, you are not doing yourself much good when it comes to negotiation. So a simple conversations can be, oh yeah, that sounds good. I think when it comes to when we are done with the whole interview process, we can probably talk better about this, but that sounds about fair. And one of the things you would also, because one of the things you could also let the recruiter know is that when you come to signing an offer, it's not just about the salary. There are other things that you would also look at, who are you going to potentially working with, what are like the career prospects. So that's one way to take up the conversation at that stage. So I would say the best time to really go into negotiation more is when you are done with the interview, they're about to send you the offer, you've spoken with like the different teammates you're working with, or you've spoken to your hiring manager, like they're just about to send you the offer right now. So most likely what happens is that the recruiter comes back to you and say that, oh yeah, this is what we want to offer you, or they ask you what do you want to accept. This is when you start your negotiation, right? So don't do monthly negotiation before the interview in detail. At that point you would have made research about the potential salary for that role and whatever it is. I would say whatever you really want to accept as a starting salary, you want to probably like say to the recruiter 20% higher than that. So let's say you want to accept like 100k salary. Let's just use that so that we don't have to mentally think about the maths. So the first thing you tell the recruiter is, maybe you tell them like, oh, you're looking at 120 or 125 or whatever it is. So remembering that when it comes to negotiation, you make negotiation difficult for the other party if you stick at just a number that you really want. So if you want 100k and you tell them you want 100k and you don't budge, like it makes it difficult for them. So you don't really want to do that. So and you're like, oh, I want 100k, why would I say 125? Because that's the whole idea of negotiation in itself. So first few thing is, the recruiter asks you a question like, oh yeah, what's your like salary expectation? One of the things you want to do is you want to take it back to question to the recruiter and say, what is like, what are they planning to offer? They then give you like a number, then you make a counter offer. That makes it easier so you to go higher than whatever the offer is, right? Because at that point, like they're about to give you the offer, so you don't necessarily have to overthink, oh, are they going to resign this offer? But I will give you a trick in case you're also afraid of that. But one trick for that is when the recruiter asks you for negotiation, you could also tell them, what, why not just email this to me, email this offer to me so that I can see in details and read, because I just like to see things more in details and they're like, oh, I don't want to prepare the paperwork, but that some of them might act that way. Some of them are like, oh yeah, sure, I would send it to you. Because when you have that in your email, at least that also gives you some full step ahead and like, okay, at least you have something and offer, and it's a conversation. So negotiation is a good skill that most companies really want. So they even see it as a bad thing if you're negotiating, and especially if you're not even saying something very outrageous. Because when you sign the offer, they're not going to increase your salary in the next 2-3 months. That's going to be what you would have for like at least a good number of months. It depends on the company you're working with. So what happens, in the whole negotiation period, you tell the recruiter tells you a number. Let's say you want 100k, and the recruiter says, oh, like our budget is 70k or 60k or 80k. You're like, oh, I mean that sounds fair, but like what you were thinking of is, I was thinking about like 120. Remember that you said you wanted 100k. That's what you think would be a great salary, and this is just whatever salary range you're thinking about. The good number is just 20%, a little bit above what you think would be a good number for the salary. So next thing that happens is the recruiter is like, oh, that's way too high. That's not possible. That pushback is normal. So when you experience that pushback from the recruiter, and you're like, oh no, we can't take these. That's part of the normal process of negotiation. In fact, if there's no pushback, we probably call the number that's way low. And some creators don't like to play the games. Like I said, I think it's just the game and all of that. They probably tell you what the company can best offer. They might say, oh yeah, I think the best you can actually offer is like 85k and thereabouts. You also want to tell them, well, why not just go back to the hiring manager or the director to tell them about this. So don't budge, don't reduce the 120k. That's 20% higher than you want. Maybe that come back to the number, like let's say 95. Then at that point you start to like maybe go down a little bit and say, okay, what about 105? What about, before you know, in the little bit of the back and forth, in a worst case scenario, you probably might get something like maybe 5k less than what you intended, compared to just signing the offer immediately. And sometimes in the worst case scenario that would also happen is that they might just say, okay, this is the best you can offer and this is what they will give to you. So most time you also have to be able to read the room and know when to stand your ground and know your value. What I would just say is that when it comes to working for an organization, it's a two-way street. You have your value, so whatever the company is going to be paying you, they also see that you are going to bring in value to the table, and they want to share it to you as like somebody who is like valuable to the company. So when you have an offer, don't be quick to sign. Don't just say yes. Don't just say, oh, I want to get to resume, maybe because you've been looking for a job for a while. You want to be able to show that you are actually also a person of value by negotiating, because that's the truth about it. Because when you negotiate, it's also going to help you have a better income. Let me know what tricks or tips you've used when it comes to salary negotiation. This principle will work for you either in any field, in data science or even art or whatever. And do not subscribe and follow, share in case this video was a value for time. See you, ciao.